mermaids in The Sims 4 really did deserve better. Hi, hello, welcome back if you're coming back to my channel. And today we're going to be making a mermaid's palace. And this one, I actually asked people in my last video if they had anything they'd like to see. And someone left a comment that they are really into whale sharks. And maybe I could do something mermaid related or ocean themed. And I had already planned to do something like that for summertime anyway. So it just lined up really well. So, I mean, if that person came back, this is for you. I kind of want to walk you through what I was thinking when I was making it, the storyline that I gave the build itself, and I also want to talk about mermaids and sirens, and I want to talk about the leaks about the fairies, which if you've seen my other videos, you know that I'm very, very excited about. I have a lot I want to talk about today, so get ready to listen to me yap, but if you don't want to, you can always just mute me and leave. It'll be okay, I understand. To start out my inspiration of the build, I knew I wanted it to be made of stone, and I knew that I wanted it to have kind of these open towers, and that was basically all that I have. I actually ended up doing a really ugly, bad sketch of kind of what I wanted, but it wasn't very good, and I ended up going a lot different than originally planned for it. So I can actually throw in my little sketch that I did right in here so you can see. It kind of turned out like that. At least the left side is very similar. I knew I wanted to have a big domed glass roof. I wanted a lot of open air kind of windows and arches that I used as windows instead. And I wanted to use very mermaidy colors on the interior. So a lot of purple, green, blue, cool colors. And I wanted it to feel very beachy. But trying to connect those two things together was really tough for me because the outside is very clearly kind of stone and more fancy. And the inside, wanting to use some of the island living furniture and more things that were very beachy, it just didn't really seem to fit. Why would it be furnished like that? So I kind of came up with the idea that since the outside is stone like this and has all this open air windows, what if this building used to be underwater and the mermaid used to live there underwater and now it is on the beach? So now she can use all this human furniture that looks a bit more modern and it would still make sense and wouldn't clash too badly with the exterior of the build. And I really like that I came up with that because it made everything so much easier. This build did give me a lot of trouble. This was not even the first attempt at making this. I had actually recorded for an entire 45 minutes a shell that I ended up just hating. And that's why I ended up doing the sketch because I was like, I need to have some idea of what I'm doing because I really have nowhere to go here. I don't really use mermaids very much. I just was so unsure of what to do. So this was a third attempt actually because I had tried once without recording just to see if I could get a feel for it. Then I did a 45-minute recording of a build that I just hated the shell of and I just got rid of it and started over. So third time's a charm, I guess, because I do really like how this one ended up turning out, especially since I decided to do the previously underwater thing because with that I decided with the exterior I could decorate it with a lot of the debug coral from Island Living and I love how that turned out. I think it really does look like it came out from the ocean and is now on land. And we also have hanging ivy from Jungle Adventure, I think it is. And that one kind of looks like seaweed still hanging off of it. And I actually also went looking for the Island Living collection that you can do. You can do the Sulani treasures and then there's also beachcombing for seashells. Except I had no idea those are not available in the build by menu at all. Even if you have debug cheats on, they're just not there. So I actually had my sim self go around beachcombing to get them and they come in later because originally I couldn't find them and I said screw it, whatever. But I really, really wanted the seashells because there really isn't that much coral that you can use from the debug menu. So I really wanted them. So I ended up forcing my sim self to beachcomb for hours to get a whole bunch of them and you can't duplicate them. So it's just whatever you find and then I put them in household inventory and use them later. And I put them on the roof where I put the coral and the different plants and I really, really, really like how it turned out. It was exactly what I was going for. So you'll see me take those out of my household inventory later. And if you're like, where did she get those? I made my sim self dig them up. They were not in the build menu. I had to go find them. They did make for really good landscaping though too. I didn't just have them on the roof. I also put them around with the bushes. I just sized them up and I put them basically everywhere. I put them on the balconies. I had them in the house as collections, as little decorations. I actually kept running out. I had to go back and go get my sim again, collect stopped more because I was using them everywhere. I liked them so much. You can see I also used these columns from Romantic Garden Stuff, I think, and they're the swatch that kind of has the greenish ivy weathering on them, and I think that helps too with the illusion that this used to be underwater. And I don't get to use those columns very much because they're very, very fancy. And I used a tile staircase, and then when I get in the inside, I use tile everywhere too, because I was thinking, if a mermaid lives here, I imagine they'd probably be wet a lot, and if it's hot, it's nicer to have tile anyway because it's a bit cooler. I don't build a lot in Sulani or Oasis Springs or basically anywhere where it's hot a lot because I don't live somewhere hot at all, and I also am just not a fan of heat and summer and anything like that myself. So in The Sims, I don't build anything usually in places that are hot. It's just not something I'm familiar with, and I don't like being hot, so it's not something I do. It's fun to get to use things I don't really use very often. So I'm very much willing to try things that I don't do because I don't ever want to be boring. I don't want to do the same things all of the time. But we all have our things that are specifically that we do all the time over and over again. It's just our favorite things. And mine is usually haunted houses or creepy houses or things like that. I went through the landscaping menu too with all the debug plants and using some of the ones from Get to Work. I also used this for my fairy house not long ago at all. And they're so good for anything kind of whimsical and fun. It's kind of mysterious blue plants. I wanted lots of colors out here. So I have those columns with the green that add a little bit of color. And then obviously I have all the coral and the shells that come in later. And for the roof, I used that blue swatch. I think that's the roof from For Rent because it kind of looks like fish scales. And I really, really like it. And then I put the thatched roof trim on it, which I thought might be weird, but I actually really like it. I was like, oh my god, it's perfect. There is one roof texture that came with Life and Death that I think kind of looks like a rainbow fish. You know that book? You ever read that book when you were a kid, Rainbow Fish? It does remind me of that, and I would love to use it sometime because I think it's so pretty, but it is a bit more muted, like it is a bit more gray, so I did test it out on this and I didn't like it. And I do really like the blue one, so I'm glad that I stuck with it anyway. Windows gave me some trouble on here. I feel like I always have trouble with windows. I never know what to use, but I ended up going with the ones that are from For Rent. I really do like the build stuff from For Rent. I think it's so pretty, and it comes in so many nice pastel colors too. I tried using some colorful windows on here originally, and I didn't like them. I think it was just too much. I think having the very white and cream colored stone and the white windows is good because then all of the color comes from the coral and the roof and then all of the plants, and I think that works really well. I just couldn't get it to work with the other colors. Maybe it's just because I did my clown build last time and that was so much color. I was like, no, you need to calm down. And I actually did most of my landscaping before I went inside this time, so I mean, this is new for me. Usually I'd save landscaping for last for some reason. I did do a little bit at the end, but the vast majority is done here, and once I get those shells that I start placing everywhere, and then we mainly just focus on the inside for the rest of the video. Now, I mentioned earlier that for the inside, I had a little bit of trouble deciding how to furnish it. I cut out myself doing the floor plan because that also took me a while. But once I had settled on the idea that this mermaid used to live underwater and maybe she was like obsessed with humans, it's all very Little Mermaid movie type thing going on. Very much similar. So that's what I was kind of picturing when I was making it. But now that she gets to be on land, she's so excited to get to use all these human things. So she has a bunch of very human furniture. But for the bathrooms, I made sure that we had mostly bathtubs, and then she does have one shower in this house. There's 3 bathrooms. 2 of them have bathtubs, and then 1 of them has a shower, because I feel like a mermaid would just like a bathtub more. But does she really need that when she has the ocean in her backyard? Probably not, but what if she has visitors? You know what I mean? So since she's obsessed with human stuff, I originally was going to do 3 bedrooms, but I decided to end up only doing 2, and then that fun room that's completely open on the side with all of the arches ends up being her collection room. You'll see later, and I'll get more into it later. I put so much just junk in that room, random stuff that I thought maybe a mermaid would think was cool. Oh, look at all these interesting things. Again, it's very Little Mermaid, her collection cavern with all her stuff and the statue of Prince Eric and blah, blah, blah. So I put a bunch of gnomes in there. We have so many gnomes in this game, so many little gnome statues that I never ever use. It was the perfect opportunity. And I had a lot of fun with that. The worst part in furnishing was when I first started and I first did the kitchen and the dining room. I kept going back and forth on colors and the layout. It was so terrible. And trying to edit it was awful because I didn't want you to see me being just so stuck and changing the same things over and over again so many times. But I didn't want to ruin the continuity. So just stick with me when we go through the kitchen and the dining room. I know it's kind of annoying, but it gets better after that. That was the part that was definitely the worst. The story does very much sound like the Little Mermaid, but I didn't want to call it like Ariel's castle because it's not Ariel's castle. If I wanted to build Ariel's castle, I would make it look as close as possible as I could. So this was my version of a mermaid that sounds a lot like Ariel, but isn't quite Ariel. And she lives here and she loves having her human legs, but she can still turn into a mermaid because that's how Sims 4 mermaids work. And since she's so obsessed with humans too, I wanted to add in a lot of skill building items. So there's a lot of just random stuff in this house. She has knitting, she has cross stitch, she has an archaeology table, she has a gemology table. I feel like she would like gems, and I put them around the house a little bit, and I tried to use things that reminded me more of fish. Like I have a wallpaper in the kitchen that ends up looking like fish scales, and then I have these hanging lights, which I think are from Lovestruck, that look like pearls. Lots of lights that look like pearls, actually. There's a couple from a couple different packs. I think one's from the Book Nook kit too. Anything that looked even remotely like something maybe underwater, I was like, oh yes, absolutely, we're using that. Now that we're at what I think is kind of a boring part of the video, just because this is the part where I was going back and forth and I couldn't make up my mind and whatever, I'm gonna take this time now to talk about mermaids a little bit. I did go looking for a story to tell you guys because I do like to do that, but I couldn't find anything that was like a full story to tell you, because if you go looking for information about mermaids, the vast majority of it is like, oh, have you heard the original Little Mermaid story? It's darker than the Disney one, which like, no shit, it's darker than the Disney one. There's like 1,000 videos about it and most people have already heard it anyway, and I didn't want to just retell the same Little Mermaid original story to you guys anyway. So I'm just going to talk about mermaids of my common knowledge of mermaids because I like mythical creatures in general, so I don't really have many sources for this because all of this is just living in my mind. But I will have a link in the description. When I was looking for stories, I was looking for maybe different kinds of mermaids, like similar creatures from other cultures and stuff like that. And there was this museum website that had a whole bunch of them. And so I'll link that in the description just because I thought it was really interesting. But there was no specific stories that I wanted to tell you guys that I felt comfortable sharing in such like a short form thing, because my whole video isn't dedicated to information and education and things. I just want to give you a little snippet of something, and nothing really seemed appropriate for me to do that like this. That wasn't just, oh, have you ever heard the original version of Little Mermaid? And someone else has told it way better than I would anyway. So we'll just talk a little bit about mermaids and what I like about mermaids for a little bit. When I was a kid, mermaids were kind of a weird thing for me because, you know, who didn't play mermaids in the pool and stuff like that? But also, I was always a big fan of, you know, mythical creatures anyway, and I love ghosts and everything like that. So they were kind of on my radar, but they were never really my thing particularly outside of certain media. But when I tell you, I was obsessed with the sirens in the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie when I was a kid. I did not care about the rest of the movie, but I was obsessed with the part with the sirens singing and then drowning the sailors. I am not better. I 100% would have been lured in and then murdered. Technically, I think they called them mermaids in that movie, but they did include the siren song bit, so they were basically the same thing. And it's kind of interesting that sirens and mermaids are kind of seen as the same thing now, where they didn't really used to be. Because sirens in Greek mythology, as seen in the Odyssey, were originally kind of bird-like creatures, and they were bird women, not fish women. And the bird women sirens are the ones that Odysseus tied himself to the mast of his ship to avoid being lured away by. I am unsure how it eventually transitioned to be more mermaid-like. When we hear siren, we think something mermaidy instead of the bird thing. But it's funny how this happens a lot with mythological creatures, and they kind of become meshed together as time goes on just due to similarities. And I talked about this a bit in my fairy video, since there are so many similar creatures in folklore, so they all end up under the umbrella of fairies. I do remember when I was looking for a story for that video, there were a couple that had these water spirits that were in that book that was specifically fairy stories. There was one, I believe, a man finds this mermaid-like creature in the woods, and he helps her get back to the ocean because she's in like this little pond, and in her gratitude she visits him and gives him little gifts. And there's a bunch of little stories like that, but they aren't really attributed to mermaids because mermaids are kind of a very specific thing. Most places have some sort of water nymph-like creature, but it's not really a mermaid. In a lot of stories too, the mermaid is either, they could be evil, they could be good, depends on what you're reading. Most of the time, I think the difference that a lot of people make in the modern day at least is that mermaids are nice and sirens are not nice. Sirens will kill you, mermaids are just like to hang out. I don't really know. In the past, it's not really true. Mermaids could also just be evil as well. Like sometimes you'd see them drawn on those maps where, you know, they'd say like, here be monsters in the wide open ocean. You'd see a little sea serpent drawing and then like maybe a little mermaid. It was just kind of an unknown, you know, wide, vast ocean, what lives in it kind of deal. And I think it's actually so interesting to what people will imagine when they don't know what something is or where something is. They say a lot of mermaid sightings were actually manatees and things like that, where someone sees something and they're not quite sure what it is, so they come up with something. And then how, if you already have a pre-existing creature, then if you see something, even if it doesn't quite fit, it does confirm what you already believe. Oh, this must be a mermaid because I know what a mermaid is, and this kind of looks like a mermaid. It's like when you're trying to go to bed and it's dark in your room, but there's like a little light, maybe from the moon or something, and you see a shadow that you imagine is a person, and it's not a person. It's just like your coat, but I don't know, it kind of looks like a person. I used to have really bad paranoia issues with that when I was a kid, so I would convince myself that there was an actual person in my room, and so I just lay there in fear the whole time. And it didn't help that I was always obsessed with reading like scary stories all the time, so I'd read those and then I'd go to bed, and then since I had just read them, it was just a confirmation of something that I had heard earlier. So I'm seeing this shadow and I'm pretty sure it's a man because I'm scared, and I just read the story earlier, so this is obviously the Hat Man. The Hat Man is here and he is going to kill me because this is what I heard happens. And now I've convinced myself that I have seen the Hat Man. So my theory that I have no evidence to back up besides just being a child afraid of the Hat Man is that mermaids mostly came from, you hear a story about a mermaid, you see something, you don't know what it is, it kind of looked like it had a tail, like kind of like you hear the mermaids have, and now suddenly you just saw a mermaid. Isn't that crazy? But with how many different powers mermaids have been said to have, it is really disappointing that The Sims 4 added mermaids and did basically nothing with them. Mermaids are one of the worst occults next to aliens, and if you count plant sims, but I don't really count plant sims, I'm gonna be real. They're so boring. They can't do anything. They don't have any skill trees. They don't do much at all. I almost never play with them, and I almost never even go to Sulani because in my gameplay, I am so bad about taking vacations and doing life stuff with my sims. I'm kind of a min-maxer in most games, unfortunately. I can't help it. I gotta go, like get every achievement, do everything. So any sort of family gameplay I try to do in The Sims, it's really bad. Like I don't do a good job. I get my sim a job and I'm like, okay, I want you promoted every single day. You're home from work, time to work on your skills so you get promoted tomorrow. And it's so bad because, you know, holidays are in my game. I have seasons, so it'll be Harvest Fest. I do not participate. I'm like, no, you need to get promoted tomorrow. Like bothers me. It's like, damn it, it's Harvest Fest. Like I'm busy ignoring my children and forcing my sims to work on their skills so they can get promoted. So many of my sims end up with the workaholic lifestyle. A lot of people find it annoying. I don't. Yeah, go into work on your day off. Get more skills, please. My poor sims, they're probably like, please let me relax. Please let me take a vacation. I completely forget that Granite Falls even exists because I never take vacations. My sims are always working. They're always stressed. They're probably like, put me out of my misery. I am a cruel god to those Sims. I make them work and work until they die. My Sims almost never retire too, because if I'm doing more generations of gameplay, I'm like, well, they're gonna need money. And they just started out, and their job, they're making like $20 an hour, dude. You're making $500 an hour. I need you to go into work. I know you're dying literally tomorrow, but I mean, that's not my problem. Okay, you want what? You want to leave your great grandchildren with nothing? You want to leave them with nothing? You're a terrible person who wants to leave their grandchildren with nothing. That's what I'm hearing right now. I am a horrible, horrible God. All of my Sims are yearning for death, and I'm like, no. I said we were completing every aspiration, so get on that goddamn horse. You're winning the ultimate horse championship tomorrow. They haven't left their home lot in like their entire Sim life. They just stay there all the time because I don't go out to meet people. I get invitations. I never ever go. My Sims are just like me. They don't go outside. They have 2 friends, and one of them probably lives with them. So it's like a built-in friend anyway. And then one of them is a horse. What more do you need? I don't understand the problem. God, I should really work on that. I've been trying to work on it. I have a legacy I've been working on lately, and I'm trying to be very, like, my Sim doesn't have a job. Her wife goes to work, and honestly, I am guilty of kind of ignoring the wife, but I didn't make her. Her wife married in, so she was just there to have kids with. Like, I'm so terrible. I'm so terrible at family gameplay. Anyway, Mermaids got done dirty, don't you think? I'd actually been meaning to do a mermaid build for like 6 months, but it never worked out. At one point, I made something. It was a werewolf and mermaid townhouses, like right next to each other. And I hated it, and I never posted it, didn't upload it to the gallery, deleted all the footage, everything. I think instead I ended up posting the gingerbread house video. I'm glad that I finally got to do a mermaid build that I like. I kind of want to do some sort of build for every occult in The Sims. I already have a few done. I did spellcasters, I did fairies, which we don't have yet, but I have a feeling that we will very soon. I did one for vampires, and now I have one for mermaids. So all I have left are werewolves, servos, which I'd want to include because they're a little bit different, aliens, which I think would be a much different style than I usually do, so that would be fun, and ghosts, easy, that's totally on my level. And werewolves, I actually love building with the werewolf stuff, so that would be fun too. I want to do those, but I don't want to do them all like one after another. I want to spread them out a little bit. So they probably will be coming within the next 3-ish months, but with the leaks of the new pack, it may be a little bit longer. Now, I've just been kind of busy lately, so I'm recording this voiceover on June 2nd, and it'll probably be posted tomorrow, but this build has been mostly finished for about a week-ish, week and a half. I went camping last week, and then I was doing all this stuff, so May was kind of busy. I have been watching these leaks for a couple weeks until now, where the actual Sims team has been talking about things. I was really hoping, because it's an expansion pack, and they said it was called Enchanted by Nature, and I was like, I don't know, sounds like fairies to me. So I was really, really hoping, and then I went camping, and I came back, and there was still not much else introduced yet. But then, just a couple days ago, they did a live stream, and at the end of it, they had this little mini fairy house, just like in The Sims 3. So I think it's fairies. And the new world is in Ireland, which also definitely fits with fairies. So I really, really, really do think the next pack is fairies, but it's an expansion pack, which, I don't know, worries me a little bit, because most of the other occults, at least the good occults, are game packs because they're focused on the occults. The last game pack we got was werewolves, and werewolves were really good. So I just hope if it's an expansion pack with fairies, it doesn't get the mermaid treatment or the alien treatment, which are both occults that came with expansion packs instead of game packs. So they just both are kind of there. I hope they would know by now what people like with their occult Sims, but I'm worried that it's not going to be good, and I'm such a big fan of fairies. I'll put my fairy video in the description, but in preparation for this, if it comes out, I'm probably going to be doing so much stuff with fairy nature style builds and things, and I'll scatter a couple other ones in between them, I assume, because I don't want to be super boring doing the same thing over and over. But I'm just so excited for fairies. And while I went camping with my friend, we built another fairy house, which it's kind of like a little village, and then it has a little campground, and then it has what we call the amphitheater on this tree stump. We'll put a couple pictures on the screen so you can see it. I always build a fairy house when I go camping, so it was just exciting that when I got home a couple days later, they basically confirmed that yes, it's going to be fairies. In preparation for that, I want to make sure I have fun stories for you guys because I didn't really give you one this time, and I love fairies so much, and I gave you a story last time we did fairies, so I'm gonna start now looking for things to share in those videos when the fairies come out. I'm just so excited to check in on the build for a minute here because I've kind of been talking for quite a long time without even acknowledging what's going on in the actual video. We basically finished the downstairs. I gave her in that awkward little corner a bit of a reading nook. I figure you can't have books underwater, so she probably loves to read now. Do mermaids know how to read? Now that she learned how to read, she loves to read because you can't have books underwater because paper and water do not get along. So I made her a little reading nook because I figured now that she can, she'll probably really like it, and it goes with the rest of the theme of she just loves human stuff. And I no longer had to wonder what I was going to do with this awkward little space by the front door. When I made the floor plan, this little part scared me so much. I was like, I have no clue what's going to fit there. It's going to be terrible. It's kind of perfect. And then I have the little curtains in front of it. I think it's really cute. I would love to have one in real life. But then I could finally go upstairs, and I didn't know if I wanted to include this little landing here, but since I also didn't include bathrooms in this video, I feel like I'd go upstairs and start furnishing the other rooms, and you'd be like, why is half of the upstairs already furnished and she didn't show us any of it? So for the upstairs landing, I knew I wanted a piano because, as we talked about earlier, mermaids are known to be a little musical in the way that most people think mermaids and sirens are kind of the same thing. So I gave her a huge grand piano right there up in the landing, and then in her special collection room, she also has a guitar. So I figure she's pretty musically inclined because she's a mermaid. And then I kept with the pastels everywhere, but my issue mostly with this room and then actually the guest bedroom was art. The art on the walls, I just couldn't find anything I liked. I used the tarot card from Life and Death that had the mermaid on it, of course, but then trying to find other things that really went with the rest of the house was harder. I tried to just put anything that had kind of a beach or ocean on it, but most of the frames didn't fit, and the style didn't really feel like it fit either. So I don't really like any of the paintings that I put. I do like the ones from Cats and Dogs that I used. I think those ones fit just fine, but I wish there were more of them. And then I feel like none of the frames matched, and it just was pissing me off the whole time. Now that I think about it though, you know what it would have been really good, but it's too late because this is already on the gallery and everything's already all set, is if I had my sim self paint by reference pictures of the ocean and the beach and stuff. That would have been so good. Oh, that would have been perfect. Instead, I have ugly paintings everywhere. If you download this, that's what I would recommend doing instead, because I kind of hate the art that I put in here, but there was nothing else to use because I wasn't smart enough at the time to think that I could just have my sim paint by reference the beach. Oh, I'm actually so upset now that I just thought of that. It's okay. It's okay. I'll remember for next time. It'll be all right. But you notice what I said earlier about those lights kind of looking like pearls, the ceiling lights? I like them so much. I think they fit the house so well. But if we had to go least favorite room in the house, I think it's definitely this one, just this upstairs hallway, because the paintings, there's so much empty wall that I had to fill with paintings and none of them matched, and I hate all of them. My favorite room by far though is the collection room because I had so much fun with this one. I put an easel in there because I figure that corner is a really good place for that, and like I said earlier, I wanted her to have 1,000,001 hobbies now that she has legs and she's not stuck under the ocean. So I started by going through the menu and just going through the statues category and picking out a whole bunch of stuff because there are so many gnomes in this game. So I was like, oh, what if she's found a gnome one time and fell down into the ocean, and then she became obsessed with them because she's like, oh, this must be very important to the humans. And so she has this collection of gnomes that I put on shelves, and I have the cowplant tapestry banner thing from, I think it's high school years, hanging on the wall because I was like, ooh, she's probably never seen a cowplant. That must be so mysterious to her, and cowplants are just so fun anyway. And once I had put that on the wall, I was like, I feel like I should put more stuff on the wall. She should have another collection going over there too. So she has her collection of gnomes, and then behind it on the wall, she has all these pictures. And that's also where I snuck in my classic clown picture because, you know, I had to. But I used the happy one because because I didn't want my mermaid to feel sad. And now that we have the happy one, I feel like I have options, you know? And if you didn't know, I try to include the clown painting in almost all of my builds because it's kind of an inside joke with me. And the story my dad used to tell me about his cousin in The Sims 1 with the clown painting and how just the various ways that he would torture his Sims. He'd lock them in a room and they'd be starving and peeing on the floor, and then they'd burst into tears because they're looking at the sad clown painting. So whenever he would tell me about that, the clown painting, even before I played The Sims, was always just iconic to me. So now I include it in all my builds, and it reminds me of my dad, and it's fun. It's funny for me. Then in the rest of the room, I was like, ooh, we have a bunch of trunks I could put in there, and the treasure chests that you can find when you go scuba diving, and little jewelry boxes, and anything shiny, and any trinkets. I was just putting them all over the floor, and I have that kind of curio cabinet from Realm of Magic that I think is so fun. And then when I put all the paintings on the wall, I was like, oh, it'd be really fun if I used the new ones from Businesses and Hobbies that you can get from Trashly, her new collection. Their collection. Trashly's 3 raccoons in a trench coat. I don't know. Their paintings that you can get from them all have raccoon faces. I thought that would be so funny because the mermaid doesn't know any better. She thinks those are the priceless works of art and they're just Trashly's weird paintings. So I have a bunch of those on the wall too. And then you can see I was literally just picking out anything, just everything. Ooh, I can use that. Ooh, I can use that. Oh, that's perfect. I put a Void Critter card on one of the shelves on the wall, like the coveted item. I hope you can see why this is my favorite room. I think it's so funny. I have that picture of grilled cheese from the new kit, which, by the way, I did end up getting both of the new kits, but I don't get cast kits, even though I do actually like the Golden Years one. I think that one's actually kind of fun, but I didn't get it because I don't get cast kits because I don't really use cast beyond making my Sims once in a while. Then I do one and I'm like, okay, I'm bored. I don't want to make any more Sims. But I did get Restoration Workshop and the Kitchen Clutter kit, and I do really like both of them, and I did buy them. And I also got the Sleek Bathroom kit, and I used that in this house too because I thought the stone looking, I think it just fit so well. It just felt kind of perfect. The very heavy stone fixtures for the bathrooms. So I used that in this as well. But you don't have to have them. There's a lot of stuff. When you see this later, you're going to be like, that is so many kits. That is ridiculous. But most of them only have a couple things. Like, you don't need to have all of the packs to download this. I would recommend you have Island Living because that one's kind of important. And High School Years, actually, because High School Years, I used a lot of the furniture from that because it has that kind of wicker set that looks really beachy. So if you want to download it, but you're a little scared that I used so much stuff, you can always check what items are used and you probably won't be missing that much. And if you're looking at something and you're like, I have no idea what was meant to be there, you can just come watch this video and be like, oh, she put that there. That's basically useless. So you don't have to have it. I even used the bowling stuff pack in this because I used the bowling pins in the collection room and the bowling trophy. I have a bunch of trophies. I think some are from like the Everyday Clutter kit and the basement stuff. So this room really is the culprit for a lot of the packs used, I think, because I just have so much random stuff in the collection room. But you can always change that. And I know when most people are watching a speed build anyway, they're not watching so that they can download it. That's not why people watch these anyway. So I doubt most of you are going to download it anyhow. It's just fun to watch. And I think it is more fun whenever I would watch people do speed builds and they do a limited pack build. I'd be like, I kind of would have liked to see what you could do with all of your stuff. You know, if you're going to have all the stuff, you may as well use it, especially since I don't make any money from doing these videos. I'm just a little guy. I just do this for fun. So I want to use the packs that I spent my money on, but then I have to think about how much money I have spent on The Sims, and that's kind of scary. It's all right though, because you know, it's my adult money that I worked for, that I slaved away for the siren for. Oh my God, wait, that's actually so funny. So I used to work at Starbucks, and I've mentioned this a couple times. And whenever we were working there, it was always like, oh, we're slaves to the siren because that's the mascot. That's the logo for Starbucks is the siren with the 2 tails. And now I'm doing a mermaid build, and we talked about sirens. I already was a slave to the siren. It already happened. I spent 4 years being a slave to the siren. And she helped me to afford many, many Sims packs. That's why I was so enchanted by those mermaids slash sirens from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie when I was a kid. My destiny was written long ago. There was no chance for me to escape it. Well, anyway, moving on to the next room. This is the guest bedroom. It's not my favorite. I just think it's kind of boring. It's a guest room and it's not very big. I put a chess table in there because, again, just lots of skills in this build, but there really wasn't much room for anything else. I have the mirror from Realm of Magic because I thought it was suitably fancy enough for this, and that's basically it. It does have its own ensuite bathroom though, and it is my favorite bathroom in the house because I used a corner tub and it fit really well. I can show you later when I do the full tour. This room just isn't that interesting, and then I spent an absurd amount of time trying to get pictures that I liked on the wall, and I tried using those undersea photos that you can get if you go scuba diving, I think, in the game, and it's another unlockable collection, but I just didn't like the black frames. I don't think it matched the rest of the room, so I end up changing it, and it's just another example of me not being able to figure out anything with the paintings in this house. So I end up using the same one that I've already used. It's disappointing, but it's not a big deal. I end up moving the undersea paintings to downstairs when I revisit the dining room because I felt the dining room was a little too plain. So I do that at the end. I kind of go around and add a few little things here and there, and fixing the dining room was one of them. So they get those undersea paintings and it gets new built-ins on the walls. Now we can go upstairs though, and this is the main bedroom. This is the actual mermaid's bedroom, and I had to turn it to nighttime because the shadows and light from the glass roof was difficult to build with. At this point, I had also made my sim self go collect more shells on the beach, so I added those everywhere, and I really think it added just a little bit of something. It also makes the corners on the balconies just look a lot better. I also used sand on the flat roof parts underneath the shells and stuff. How does it stay there? Mermaid magic. I don't know. But if it came up out of the ocean, it would probably have a sand that had settled on top. So I was just keeping with that theme. And then for the furniture in the room, I use a lot of high school years in here. I think it just works really well. It has that wicker stuff. And I don't think I've ever really used that bed. I actually really like it. I don't know why I haven't used it. I changed the swatch later on to the more purple one because I felt I wasn't getting enough purple in this room. And then mixed with the island living furniture, I just think it actually does look really nice. It's not my personal style, but I really like it. I knew in this room I wanted her to have a dedicated shoe closet because I was thinking, oh my god, if she was a mermaid and she was turned into a human, I bet she would just really love having shoes. I bet that would be kind of a fun novelty for her once she learned how to walk, if she had a shoe collection, because she could never wear them before. So I put these shelves and I put just a bunch of shoes over them, and I thought it was so fun. And she has her own dressing table. I cut it out of the video so you didn't see it, but at one point I tried to do a little separate room in here, but it was just so oddly shaped I got rid of it. It was meant to be her walk-in closet type of thing, so it had the dresser and the dressing table and the shoes, but it was just so weirdly shaped I couldn't do it. It ruined the rest of the room, and then the closet was weird. It was just too many weird corners in this room to do that, but I did attempt it. But instead I just put that little island living divider, and it created a kind of separate corner of the room anyway, so it still kind of has that feeling of a walk-in closet, but it's still open. And then on the other side of the room, I gave her her collection of shells and just random stuff. I like to think that that's all stuff she took from down where she used to live, and she keeps it in her room because it reminds her of her real home, which will always be the sea. And this room was just so big. It has its own dedicated sitting area, and since it's also so weirdly shaped, there is no bathroom up here, which is a little annoying, where your sim will have to go down the ladder to go use the bathroom, but it's not like it's that far away. It's just a little annoying, but I couldn't fit a bathroom up here, and I like it better with it's just this really big open room anyway. Then out on the balcony, I have a yoga mat because, again, wouldn't it be kind of fun if when she was learning how to use her legs and walk, I feel like trying to do yoga would be a good way to learn how to move her limbs and get used to how they function. So that's out on the balcony, and this is play tested, so the yoga mat does work even though it looks like it might be a little crowded. The only thing that might not work in this house, I think, is the telescope, but I think that's an easy fix if you just scoot it over. Everything else play tested, everything works, all the bathtubs, everything. When you see later, you may think, oh, some of that looks a little tight, and it is tight, but it still works, I promise. I made sure. Everything, as usual, is in the description, gallery ID and what the lot's called and everything like that. This room, I also threw in the cross stitch and the knitting, little clutter items that also have functionality because, like I said, I wanted her to want to try everything. So every hobby is in this, except for maybe the huge giant ones. This one doesn't come with the microscope or the cupcake factory, so my bad. Most little skills I included just because I could. I love the giant rug that I used in here too because it kind of looks like stained glass, and then also with the glass and the shadows on the floor, I think it just looks really nice, kind of kaleidoscope-y. It's just really cool. And that's basically it for the main bedroom. I just go around and add some art on the walls and then clutter on the bookshelf and things like that. And then I go and fix the dining room and then I head outside. So there isn't much left in here, so I'm just gonna update you a little because I just remembered that if you watched my last video, I told you I had a job interview. Well, I went into the job interview and I thought it went well, and the lady seemed to think that it went well because she asked how I was feeling. I was like, I feel pretty good. And she said it was looking really good for me, and she had one more interview to do, and she had been doing interviews for an entire week, and she had one more interview to do that day, and then she'd call me the next day, and she never called me the next day or the day after that or the day after that, which is fine. Like, I wasn't specifically looking for the job. I kind of just came up and I decided I would apply, and then I went for the interview. I always have my phone on vibrate. Having to have my ringer on. I had my ringer on for an entire week until I was like, okay, well, she said she'd call the day after. She never called. Obviously, the girl that came in after me was just so good at decorating cakes that it was just over. It was over for me. She probably had professional experience. I'm just some guy. I just like to decorate cakes and cookies and stuff at home. So maybe she had a really good resume. I don't know. Maybe the lady that interviewed me just didn't like me that much. I have no idea. I'm not upset about it, but I said I'd update you. So if there's like a single person that's wondering what happened, that's what happened. They never called me. So I am not working at a little grocery store decorating cakes. She never called me. May really was kind of busy, wasn't it? My friend also moved last month, and for the first week of the month, I was trying to just see him as much as I could because he was moving back to Tennessee, which I live in New York, so that's kind of far. So trying to hang out with my friend as much as I could, and I kind of have a low social battery, so socializing a lot within a week really tired me out. I mean, though, Joe buddy, if you're watching this video, miss you. Hope things are good in Tennessee. I already know how things are going in Tennessee because we text, but still, hey, thanks for being one of the 2 friends that I have that watch my videos. That's very nice of you. Other than that, I've also been reading a lot, though not a lot of books that I've enjoyed, because the problem here is that I'm a big horror fan, but I have this problem where there's a lot of sexual assault in horror books, particularly of women for, I don't know, some reason. And it's starting to piss me off with the amount that it's used and also just how unnecessary it is because, like, of course, I would never want that to happen to me and that's scary. But in paranormal horror context, why is a ghost or some kind, why is it doing that? That's human shit. It's not scaring me. It's not like filling me with dread. It's just making me sad. It's not very effective and somewhat uncomfortable with some implications I'm having about the author now that this is like all they can come up with for something terrible to happen and scary to this woman. Just saying. It's just sorry for being a downer. This is just a mini rant about how hard it is to find a good horror novel. And at this point, I mean, if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Someone recommended The Haunting of Hill House to me a while ago, and I already love Shirley Jackson, so that was a really good one. It doesn't have to be horror books, but I do really like horror novels. I also like mystery, or I like nonfiction too, honestly. If it's, you guys know I love some good folklore. Or I like books that are very character focused. I'm more of a character person than a plot person. I'm not really a big fan of fantasy for that reason, but I mean, it depends. I'll still read it if it sounds good. I don't really like romance either. But if you have anything, let me know. I'll read it. Not many people in my life read, so I don't get a lot of real life recommendations. So I'll take some of these. Anyway, you've been watching me do the outside for a minute here. In the back, I put a hot tub and some lounge chairs, just normal outside stuff. I also have the flower arranging table because, again, just a little new thing for her to do, especially since you probably don't get a lot of flowers that grow on land underwater. I imagine they don't do well in the ocean. I put a hot tub in the back too. I think a mermaid would like that. Maybe it's sort of like how there's underwater volcanoes and then she uses that as a hot tub when she's down there, and then up here she's like, ooh, and now I don't have to worry about lava. It's, fun. I put a bonfire out front with some little log chairs and then a couple towels with a picnic set up, and one of the towels has a mermaid on it, of course. And that's pretty much the whole build, and now I will let future me take over and show you around the whole thing. Okay, here we are on the outside, and then we can go take a look around real quick. And here it is from around the back. I actually like how the back looks, which isn't usually a thing that I like. So that's a good sign. And I think the sides look cool too. I think the coral really carried the whole build. But then we can go inside. Okay, so through the front door, this is like the grand entrance. And then over here we have our little book nook. I really think this is so cute. And then this door right here is a bathroom. And this is the one that has the shower in it. And then back out, we have our little opening here. I put a phone here because I think a mermaid would love this, the way that kids love these kinds of phones because they just have never seen one in real life before. So she has one. And then over here, we have a really open kitchen and living room area. So the kitchen has its own pantry through here, and I use a lot of the kitchen clutter stuff in here. And then outside the living room, I love the open curtains in here and how it's just open to the outside. And then through here, we also just have a little sitting area with these little benches. And then back out through here's the dining room, which I had trouble with, but I think it looks fine now with the extra built-ins. And then I love this jungle adventure mirror. I love getting to use. And then back over here, if we go upstairs, the top of the stairs, we have the grand piano. And then through this door is another bathroom. And this one has a bathtub, no shower. Back out through here is her collection room, which is my absolute favorite room in the house. I love this room. All of her junk. This is so fun. And then the big wall of paintings up here. We have the guest room, which I think is kind of plain, but it's still nice, at least. And then through here, it has the ensuite bathroom, and I love the corner tub and how I put these platforms around so it fits really nicely in there. And then the curtains and it being open, I think is so cool. And then back out again. And then if we go all the way to the top floor up this ladder, here you come out, you have this nice partition here so that it doesn't look so huge. But I love the light from the roof onto everything and how colorful it is in here. And she's got her bed and her shoes and her closet with her dressing table. And then you can come out onto the balcony and you have the yoga mat. And then you can look out at the ocean. And then all that's left is just the exterior. We have the back balcony out over the ocean, and then some lounge chairs, her flower arranging table, and then her hot tub, which you can use. I did check. And then out in the front, we just have the little picnic area here and the bonfire. And that is the whole house. If you watched this whole thing, thank you. If you skipped to the end, thank you. I have a really fun build planned for next time. I hope that you'll stick around for that. So if you do, I'll see you next time, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. I really wish there were like scary mermaids in The Sims. Like if they have those big, like deep sea fish eyes that are huge and sharp teeth and claws, that'd be more fun.